Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker, for having us here today. I've had a good look around your house.
Yeah.
And I suppose really we ought to cut to the chase. You'd like to know the value at today.
Yeah, lovely.
Based on houses that I've seen recently, I think that your house is worth about £250,000.
Right, okay. Great, lovely.
Is that about where you thought it would be?
Possibly, yeah, I'm not quite sure, so looking for expert advice type of thing.
Okay. And based on that, would you like to give us the instructions to sell the house today?
I'm seeing a couple of other guys tomorrow, so I would like to see them first of all, and obviously see what they say, and before I make a decision.
Okay. Well, our fees are about 1.5%.
Of course, yeah, they're about 1.5%, aren't they?
And I'll give you a call tomorrow when you've seen those other people.
Lovely, thank you very much.
So, you've just seen a typical interview between an estate agent and a vendor. Not one I would recommend, and I have to confess now that was a complete spoof. I'd like to introduce you to James, who's from Alistair Morrison. Thank you very much for doing that for us, James. The reality is, in my mind, that when most vendors get estate agents round, what you've just seen is the reality of what happens. When I do an interview for an estate agent, I have very good estate agents working for me for the simple reason that I prefer to lead the conversation rather than let them sell to me. So not only has James done that quick spoof for us, but now he's also agreed, as a very brave gentleman, to come in here and to sit through how to grill an estate agent properly. And I always say there's around 20 questions that you should ask an estate agent before you give them instruction for your home. James knows, I'm relying on this guy here to sell my property for 200, 300 million pounds. I want to make sure of all the agents I've got to choose from that I've got the best bloke, or girl, of course, to sell my home. So, James, thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate how brave you are being. So you have genuinely actually looked around my house.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which, of course, you'll say is beautiful, wouldn't you?
It's lovely. It's very nice, yes.
So, my kind of first question, as I'm sure everybody would want to know, is what do you think the value of this property is?
I think your house is worth in the region of £300,000.
Okay, I probably agree with that actually. But come on, anybody can pluck a figure out the air. What's that value actually based on? How do I know you're not just giving me a value to make me give you the instruction, which does sometimes happen?
Absolutely. We value the property based on sold houses locally. And the information for that is got from net house prices, which we would get a list of local houses which have sold and the values that they achieved. We also use the Rightmove website, which allows us to produce a best price guide, detailing all the properties that have been on the market locally.
And whether they've sold or not, you can have a
yes, absolutely.
See. Okay,
so those that are on the market, those that are sold, and those that have remained unsold and been removed from the market.
Okay. And can anybody can I get access to this?
No, absolutely not. It's very hard to. It's just us as agents, I'm afraid.
That's a shame.
This information is really important, and it lists the detail. It details how long the property's been on the market.
Yeah.
So in days, from when and to when. So from 2005 to 2006, for example.
Right. Okay. So you got a pretty good idea if something is overvalued and hasn't sold, or it did eventually sell but for a lot less. You've kind of got a good idea why. Right. Okay. And so basically, that 300,000 has come from properties that you found.
An assessment of properties locally. For instance, we've had a look at a property just down the road, which has been on the market, as you can see, for 536 days there.
Right, okay.
That was on the market a little bit too much money, possibly.
Yeah.
And so we can take details from that.
Okay, and I guess your job is to try and find the one that's most similar to mine.
It's sorting the wheat from the chaff.
Right, okay, fantastic, thank you. And kind of, how do I know? Have you sold similar properties to this? So what I tend to find with buyers is, to start off with, they'll look at 10 different agents and every week, but then they'll kind of go down to 3 and 4, depending on the ones that are selling their types of properties. So I've got a 200-year-old cottage. We are in a village, so there's not huge numbers of properties to sell. But have you sold similar properties recently?
We have, and it's important to note that people looking in this village will have considered other villages around.
Yes, of course.
We have sold a number of properties locally. 2 which are most comparable to your property were located in other villages fairly locally.
Right, okay. So the kind of buyers that we're talking about for this one, you've already had.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. And how long is something like this going to take to sell?
Well, it depends very much on the property specifically.
Sure.
But the comparable properties that we've sold locally, one sold within about 6 weeks,
Wow, okay.
and the other was a little bit longer, about 12 weeks.
Okay. And what was it? Why did one sell for 6 and one take 12?
The one that was on the market and took 6 weeks to sell was more realistically priced and very, very well presented.
Okay.
So it sold really fairly quickly.
Okay, fine.
The other wasn't quite so well presented and was in a testing the market situation. So we're pushing the asking price a little bit more to see how the market received it.
How high you go. Okay. So what I also want to know is how many viewings is it going to take? How many times have we got to tidy up? How many people have got to come round? All of that kind of stress factor. How many people do you think we're going to have to come through the door to sell a property?
Again, it depends on a property. For instance, the property that we sold within 6 weeks, we showed 3 people around, whereas the property we sold within 12 weeks, we had to do about 8 viewings.
Okay, so we're talking probably anything up to 10, realistically, to get an offer. Okay. And one of the things I tend to find is you take on an estate agent and then they ring you up and you find yourself doing all the viewings.
Okay.
Does that happen if I'm going to give my business to you?
As part of the service we offer, we can provide accompanied viewings, and that's within office hours and outside of office hours.
Okay, so you're not going to shut the evenings and weekends then?
No, we'll do our best to do all the
happy about that. Excellent.
Well.
One of the things that does frustrate me sometimes is that you instruct an agent and then you never hear from them for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So do you have procedures? How are we going to keep in touch?
We do. We'll speak with you at least once a week.
Okay.
And that will allow us to give you feedback on the interest that you've got on the property. And then once a month we can get details and figures from the Rightmove website to see how many people have looked online.
Okay, so that's pretty good feedback from there. And a big thing is, I'm going to give you this property. Have you actually got any buyers on your list? Do you have lists?
We have. We've got a mailing list.
Okay.
Which, in this instance...
And they're actually interested in my kind of property.
They are interested specifically in this type of property in this location.
All right.
As you can see there, we've got 28 people.
Okay.
Possibly like to come and look at your house.
Fantastic. And do you know how many of those are actually in a cash position, or have they all got properties to sell? So I could be sitting here for weeks waiting for them to sell their property.
I do. They're all in different positions. Okay. 9 of those are in proceedable positions, so are cash buyers or have got finance arranged
so
without
almost
property to sell.
Then,
Yes.
Okay, so that's a reasonable number. And so when you send out my details, will you just send it out to those guys, or... No,
we'll also send it to people just outside of the parameters of what they're looking for as well, because this might be attractive to somebody who's not specifically looking for this type of property. So,
but they like the location and there's nothing else, so they have to make some sort
of there's a compromise at some point. So we typically send it out to about between 50 and 60 people.
Okay. Fantastic. And as far as kind of trying to get other buyers in, now that you've got my wonderful house on to sell, how are you going to advertise it? Because that's actually where a lot of agents fall down, isn't it? There's a lot of disputes with that.
It's really important to make sure you're as fully as exposed as you possibly can be.
Right. Nobody says that to me very often, James.
So what we'll try to do, we'll have a board at the property. We will also advertise in our office, which is in a high street location.
And is that every week? Because sometimes people say they put you in the window one week and then you never see it there again.
No, you will be in the window throughout the period of marketing.
Okay. Cool.
We also advertise on the Rightmove website and a number of other portals, so Prime Location and Fish for Homes. And those websites are really, really important to getting your property to generate leads.
Okay, and what about the local paper?
We would also be in the local papers.
Every week?
Again, it's not as much as it would have been 10 or 15 years ago. We tend to advertise every couple of weeks.
And that's because the net, I guess, most people...
The internet is the main place.
Okay. And one of the things that always worries me is that you give your business to an agent and then they come round to and then they send somebody else. So some kid comes round and they've never seen my property before.
All of our staff that are dealing with your property in your designated office will come and view the property.
Right, and they'll do that before all the...
They will do that before we launch the property to the market.
Right,
so they can discuss it with individuals. So they know that what the property's like
what they're selling
from first hand.
Okay, absolutely. Cool. And if you actually sell my property, so if you sell it, is that it then? You just sit there and go, fantastic, wait to bank the money?
No, we're not done yet. We see it all the way through the legal process. So before exchange and completion, we are constantly speaking with your solicitors and the solicitors of the purchasers to ensure that purchase process is going smoothly, ensuring we've got dates of exchange set, and that will then lead to completion. Don't forget, we don't get paid until that's completed, so it's within our interests to make sure that all goes according to plan.
Fair enough. And what if we kind of what if we fall out at any stage? So I'm sure we won't, James. But what if we did? What if we had a bit of a ruck? What happens?
We're RICS, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, so we're regulated agents, and we've got regulated chartered surveyors within the company who oversee everything that happens. So if you had any problems, you would have a redress to that institution.
As well, so I don't just make a complaint to you, I've got a third party effectively.
Absolutely. Essentially what we would ask you to do in the first instance is to put your complaint in writing, which you would receive a response with our complaints procedure within 14 days. If you weren't happy with that response, then we would be referring you to the RICS for their thoughts.
Right, okay, cool. And what qualifications have your staff got? I mean, you hear that estate agents don't have any qualifications at all. That's actually not strictly true, is it?
No, it's important that you know we are RICS regulated agents, so we've got chartered surveyors within the firm, and also professional surveyors who have obviously had an education in order to be able to do their job, and they oversee everything that happens within the company with regards to selling your house.
Right, okay. And have you got a copy of your terms and conditions tie me in knots probably, do they?
There we are. There we are.
Right, okay, so they're there. So how long have I got to give you my property for then to...
We have an initial marketing period of 16 weeks. Okay,
that sounds like an enormous amount. I mean, what happens if I sign up with you and then I don't see anybody for 4 weeks? I'm not overly happy.
Okay, what we'd ask you to do is come and have a chat with us. We're always happy to sit down and have a chat, and we'll see what we can do to help.
Okay, fantastic. And I'll tell you the last question. That one that most people probably ask first is, how much do you charge?
We would charge 1.25% of your value.
And that's on the final value, so that's not on the 300,000. If it goes for 285, then that 1.2%.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and so, talking in my head, it's around 10 grand, this deal that we're sitting discussing here. What on earth is all that money for?
Well, we've got a number of overheads, as I'm sure you can imagine. We have offices in prominent locations which we have to run and obviously fully furnish. We have buyers, which we've discussed. We've got 28 buyers in this instance, which haven't come to us for free. We've had to obviously advertise in order to get that interest. And once we take your property on, we have to advertise the property moving forward. So we've got internet costs to advertise on Rightmove. It's certainly not free. It's certainly not free. Obviously, with your board, local press advertising. So all of these things are adding up. In the production of your details and the servicing of you while you're selling your property, we have administration costs, which allow us to do our job, and the staff that conduct all of that work obviously have to be paid. They will obviously want to come and look at that property as well, so we have to be able to facilitate them coming here. And as I said before, we're qualified agents, so we're chartered surveyors. We've had to go through an education in order to get to where we are, and we have to pay annual fees in order to remain there. So it's an expensive process for us.
So it doesn't just cost a few thousand then, really?
No,
it's all this up. Okay,
establishing a business to sell your property is going to cost us a lot of money and time and effort, and for that, that sort of allows us to establish that fee.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, James.
Thank you.